Good morning, everybody. This is Stephen Pugh of the Home Bible College. It is January the 4th, and we're taking a look at Genesis chapter 9 and onward. In Genesis 9, we see that after the flood had been on the earth for a year and 10 days, which is 370 days, the next thing that God does is to bless Noah. The Lord gives substantially the same command as Adam had in the beginning. He and his sons are to be fruitful and to multiply and to replenish the earth. However, the Lord explains that now there will be a different relationship between all the animals, fish, birds, and man. They will be afraid of man. Wow. This is because mankind are now going to be allowed for the first time to eat meat. The world had been for nearly 2,000 years vegetarian. However, God had made a specific stipulation, which is that the blood of the creatures is to be drained away and not drunk. Now, this law still stands today. The eating of the flesh of a live animal that contains the blood remains today a forbidden thing. We do not eat live creatures. The next thing that God says is that men are now communally responsible to the Lord to enact judgment on criminals, and that justice is to be fair and not excessive. Murderers are to be executed on behalf of the Lord. This was the beginning of civil government and judicial government. And then the Lord said, I will establish a covenant with you and all your seed after you. This covenant still stands today. And wherever human beings are alive, this covenant included all of God's creatures. God promised that there would never be a worldwide flood again. And then the Lord said, I will put the rainbow in the clouds, and whenever I see it, he will remember his promise. Noah and his family left the ark. The next major incident was the occasion when Noah planted a vineyard and became drunk. Noah was naked in his tent, and Ham saw him naked and told his brothers. Now, there are people that suggest that Ham committed a homosexual act against his father when he slept. That might be the case, but I don't think that the passage specifically says that. But his brothers took a garment and put it across their shoulders and walked backward to cover their father's nakedness. When Noah awoke, he knew what his son Ham had done, and so he cursed his grandson, saying that he would be a servant of servants. And he blessed the Lord God of Shem and declared that the Canaanites would serve them. Noah lived another 350 years. He died at 950 years of age, 2 years before the birth of Abraham. The next chapter begins with one of the divisions of Genesis. These are the generations of, and this time these are the generations of Noah. And so we have the list of nations which descended from Noah's sons. Now let's get back over this passage. I just want to certain things the Lord brought to my attention as I was reading it and meditating upon it today. Take a look at the first chapter and verse 16. It says, and the bow shall be in the cloud, and I will look upon it, that I may remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature of all flesh that is upon the earth. Now you'll notice the little word everlasting. This word is a word that means that this covenant will not pass away. This is a covenant which stands today. it is a covenant that God has made not only with every single human being in the world, but he's made it with every single creature that breathes air in the world. Every bird and every creeping thing and every animal, it comes under the conditions of this covenant. Now that, I believe, is quite remarkable. Most of us are not aware of the covenant with Noah, and most people, Christians in particular, don't realise that every single person in the world, whether you're saved or whether you're not saved, you're in this covenant. You don't come into it, you are already in it, and you're in it through the sacrifice and through the promise that the Lord made with Noah. Now that is quite amazing. Now from verse 18 onward, we have this very sorry and sad incident in the life of Noah. Take a look at verse 25. It's quite significant. He says, "And he said, Cursed be Canaan, a servant of servants shall he be unto his brethren. And he said, Blessed be the Lord God of Shem. Canaan shall be his servant. God shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, and Canaan shall be his servant." Now what that all means and how that's worked out in the world today, I'm not sure, but I do know this, that this is not just a prophecy, this is a statement of what God's will in the nations is. It's quite amazing, quite amazing. Now from chapter 10 onwards, we have a little section in the in Genesis which we call the Tower of Babel. This is the fourth section, and we started off with creation, then we had the fall, and then we had the flood, and now we have the Tower of Babel. Now it begins in verse 1. These are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham and Japheth, unto them and their sons born after the flood. Now it's very interesting that in the first verse it's Shem that's mentioned first and Japheth last. Now I believe that in verse 1 this is describing God's positioning of the family. Shem first, and then Ham, and then Japheth. However, in verse 2 and in verse 6, and then further on down, we see the order in which they were born. It was Shem that was born last. Japheth was born first. Now, there we are. We can make so much of that. And one of the things that's very interesting is that every single human being in all the world can trace their ancestry back to these three sons. In fact, to one of the three sons. And we all can trace our ancestry back to Noah. We may not know all the details, but if only we did know the details, we would then know that we all descend from Noah. We all descend from Adam, of course, but we all descend from Noah. One of the interesting things is, if you take a look at verse 8, it says, "And Cush begat Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh in the land of Shinar." Now, this sounds very innocent. However, this is not so much a man that's just a hunter for animals. This is a man that is a hunter for men. This is an exceedingly wicked man who was based in the land of Shinar, which is where we have in Iraq today. But the main thing is he was a hunter for the souls of men. That's the point. There we are. Just mention that in passing. Now we move on down and we see all the names of the various countries. There's a little comment which is said in verse 25. It says, "Unto Eber were born two sons. The name of the one was Peleg, and his brother's name was Joktan, for in his days was the earth divided. Now, obviously, Moses knew what he was talking about when he wrote this, and the people who lived in that day knew exactly what that meant. It's not so easy for us today. But may I suggest to you that it was in those days that the earth itself was divided. There must have been probably a great earthquake. But whatever happened, the point is this is a significant event, a world-shattering event. It could be that when it says, for in his days was the earth divided, that it's talking about the judgment of God at the Tower of Babel. Could be that that's what it's talking about. It's very, very hard to know. And take a look at verse 32. And verse 32 is my password for today. It says, these are the families of the sons of Noah after their generations, in their nations, and by these were the nations divided in the earth after the flood. So every single human being descends from these men. Every single person is a son or a daughter of Noah. How interesting. Well, God bless you. It's great to talk to you, and look forward to catching up with you again tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye for now.